I am on site here today at Liberty Farms. My name is Mike Reppy, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Verti-Gro. And what we're going to do today is we're helping Liberty Farms set up a backyard system that grows 80 plants. And what they wanted me to do is set up one on video so that we can post this on their website, you know, attach it to our YouTube so that we can have all you guys out there setting up these gardens for yourself have some ease of use here. Wanted to show you when you get these gardens, there's a couple pieces that are a little bit too difficult to send. You're going to need to go out there and get two 10-foot pieces of 3/4 inch conduit. Don't get too freaked out about that. I have the part number at Lowe's and Home Depot right inside your parts list so you can go get them. Sometimes they'll cut these for you and sometimes they won't. That's probably the most difficult thing of this whole thing is cutting these down into 5-foot pieces. The other thing that you're going to want to get is a 32, I prefer a 44-gallon brute tank. We're going to use that as our nutrient tank. They last well out in the sun and they're real rugged. So the only other thing I wanted to say is to do this project, you're going to need a tape measure, some sort of a hammer. If you have a rubber mallet, that's great. I use a big old hammer, but if you have normal framing hammer, that's fine. And yeah, if you have a little level like this, that's great. It's not necessary. And we can get going with everything else. Okay, first thing that we do, and I've already got a little jump start here, is you have ground cover in your kit. Now obviously what you're going to want to do is make sure from your parts list that you have all your parts and pieces that come in the kit. I've already kind of spread them out a little bit so we can do this kind of quickly. These things are called landscape staples, and essentially they just go into your ground cover and you're just going to pound them down into your ground. Obviously that's not going to work if you're on really hard ground, and our preferred place here is out in a garden space, because what we do with this garden to keep it upright is we have in-ground support. So I'm just going to walk right through this and kind of talk out loud with what I'm doing. I lay these out. I'm going to leave that end open because that's where we're going to put our trash can or our nutrient tank. And what I've done here is I've already kind of pre-spaced all of these out at 40 inches apart. And what that does is that gives us enough space in between each vertical stack to do what we're going to do. One of the things that's very important about this process, I put a 6-inch mark on these little, what we call an in-ground support. And that tells me kind of how far I'm going to put those into the ground. The bigger the hammer, the easiest this will go. Just get those guys into the ground. Don't kill your hand here. That'll be the last dangerous part that you do. And you get those spaced out at 40 inches, just like you've set up on your tape measure. I've done this enough to where I don't use the level anymore. But the more up and down that you have those in-ground support, the more level the more perpendicular to the ground your towers are going to be. Now I'm pinching my ground cover here a little bit, and that's okay because I didn't fully finish it. We're going to move this after we're done here at Liberty Farms, but I just wanted to have a place where we can show everybody. Your next step is taking your 5-foot chunks. Here I've put a 10 to 12 inch mark on my 3/4 inch conduit. I'm going to put that one down toward the ground so that you can see how far you want to go into the ground. We're going right over the top of the 1/2-inch piece of in-ground support. And what this will do here is it'll give us a nice rigid center support that our entire column will use. Now, this is where you're going to want to get into your parts bag. Inside of your parts bag here, there are two little, let's call them nuts. They are not for anything a part of your garden. What they're for is for pounding these things down without boogering them up too much here. So again, you're going to go right down to your 10 to 12 inch mark. Now if you have a big hammer like mine, don't get too tough with this. You do not want to mess up the top of this pipe. And after this, you won't believe how quickly this garden goes together here. I'm glad I brought out the big hammer today because we got some hard ground here. All right. What we'll do next, I'm going to grab a couple of the extension pieces. The very important part why we asked you to get 3/4 inch electrical conduit, sometimes it's called EMT, is because we send you an extension piece that you're going to put right into the top of your pole. I'm going to get that down here in a minute. I think I hammered that one a little too hard. They should just swedge right down in there if you didn't hit it too hard. Okay, all right, what I've done now is I'm going to show you how to build up one vertical stack with a vertical garden system. Now, I have a caveat here in that we normally will plant these pots on a table side by side. That's when we'll put the growing media in there. And in your kit, we're using expanded coconut coir, which is coconut fiber, and perlite. I'm going to reserve that portion of things for when you go into your growing and your planting guide, because we have very good pictures inside our kit on how to do that. For here, I'm just going to go from the ground up on how we build a stack. This is what we call our ground pot. What we do here is, this is where we're going to catch all of the excess nutrient. We're going to grow larger plants out of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this all the way to the top of the stack. We're just going to put it all the way down to the bottom of our system. Now this is the important part, and you have a little bit of variability of whether you want to do 4 Verti-Gro pots or 5 Verti-Gro pots or 6. We do that with our spacer. So what we're going to do is we're going to put both spacers on this. Just take them up to the top and drop them both down onto there. That creates the height that our bottom Verti-Gro pot's going to be on. Now, the very important part about this is that we've designed a little piece here called we call it a rotostack plate. This is the plate that we use. It's going to end up being on the pipe right here. Now, as I put it on here, when it goes over our swedged piece, there's usually a little bit of a tightness there, so you'll probably see me hit it to get over the top of that. Once we get to here, if you hadn't pounded too hard, like I did, you wouldn't have a little flange here. Sometimes you might need to file that down, but for the most part, you can usually just crack it like that and it gets on there. This is the piece, once we put the Verti-Gro pot on there, it enables everything to rotate. You will love this, because when you have big plants, you can just rotate the whole stack. At this point, we're pretty much done. Obviously, again, I might have planted pots at this point. We're just going to go from the top and we're going to put it right down the center support here. One of the neat things that we designed in the Verti-Gro pot using real high density EPS is every pot can either nest for storing later on, or they can stack right on the corners, as you can see me doing here. Obviously, when you have media and plants in there, you'll have that all done. Now, when you have media in the top of this top pot, this is what we call our nutrient distribution pot. You can grow whatever you're growing in here, whether it be lettuce or herbs or greens, you can grow a couple more seeds inside of just this little guy here, or you don't have to at all. It's going to sit right on the top of your growing media just like that. And then as you see what I'm going to be doing here in just a second, we'll take a break and I'll come back. I'll show you how we do the overhead drip irrigation. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to fill out the rest of these stacks and I'll show you how to do the overhead drip irrigation. All right, we've taken a little bit of time to get everything set up like we talked about before. What we're going to do now is do the overhead drip irrigation. This system uses a gravity-fed type feeding system, and we're going to go through that right now. At the top of each one of these stacks that I've already prepped, I've taken one tee that has a little hole drilled in one side of it. This little spaghetti line, we call it the nutrient line. I'm going to put it into that hole on top of the tee, slide it right down through about halfway. I'm going to prep everything by holding this. I'm just going to put it right down over the top just like that. All these tees lined up down the line, and I'm going to actually do it on this side so that everything's on the same side. And I missed one step. This is important too. This little, we call this we put this right over the top here. And the reason why we do that is when I put this over the top, it's going to be what I can keep this nutrient line held down tight to the pipe. See how I did that? Okay, now what we're going to do, if you want to pan out, I'm going to go down the whole line. We're going to pull the line right over the top of that. You can kind of see how we get this all fed. Down here at this end, I've got my overhead nutrient line. I'm just gonna, this is where it might be helpful to have 2 people. And I'm gonna manage, but you'll see how it gets a little tricky when you try to pull the last couple pieces. When you get to here, it generally doesn't want to pull. You're going to have to go all the way back down here, give it a little bit of a push, and then it'll finish it up. All we're really needing to get it to do here is to come to to about right here at our pot. What I've done here is I've taken out the part that makes this so wonderfully with watering. This is a nutrient pump, and it's going to be a good enough capacity to handle at least one of these, and maybe the extension product on it if you wanted to add 4 more towers. This little guy is the attachment. It's the male attachment that's going to attach up to this guy here in a second. It's very important that you screw this down. You find this, by the way, in your accessory bag. We're going to screw that down into our pump. Now I'm going to do this right on top of the tank so you can see what I'm doing. Inside of your kit, obviously this is going to be down at the bottom of your tank. You have this accessory here that we have a valve shut off, and all this guy's going to do here is it just is a valve that we can turn it off or on. If it's in line with the pipe, it's on. If it's gone perpendicular to the line, it's off. What we're going to do here is I'm going to attach, and this is going to take a pretty good little push. I'm going to attach this right here like so. What this will do is to give you a really easy shut-off valve if you ever wanted to shut off your nutrient. Now, this guy here is what we're going to push on that. And that's what's going to be down at the bottom of your tank. Push it over just like so, and you're good to go. At this point, we're going to undo your cord, because this is not going to be at the bottom of your tank. It's going to be coming out of your lid here. I'm going to put this guy at the bottom of the tank. Now, one thing that might be very helpful here, without cutting your fingers off, it might be helpful to notch a little U or a little V out of this tank so that when you put the tank down flat, it can take care of its little hose attachment here. So out of the tank, I have my, my cord for the pump, and you also have a digital timer. This timer can handle 9 different timing increments. You're only going to need, in most cases, you're going to need 3 or 4. Maybe in the middle of a Florida summer, you might need 5. But what we're going to do to this, it takes 2 plugins. So you can use it for something else if you want to, as long as you're okay with the timing increment. Plug it in there, and then I'm going to refer you to your timing instructions on this guy. It's not hard, but I wouldn't call it easy either. Just go right through the instructions that are in your timer on how to set this. And this is a rule of thumb. When you get it into your growing guide and your planting instructions, it's going to give you basics on how you set your timer and for how long. But the last piece to make this all work, you can see how our nutrient line isn't doing anything. Out here in the air isn't going to help you any. Inside of your kit, you have this little punch tool. This little guy is our nutrient punch tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to punch it right here in my nutrient line near the top. And then when I pull that out, I'm going to have good firm pressure, tight to the nutrient line here, and I'm going to push it in that hole. You'll kind of feel it go in. I usually push it all the way in till I can feel it hit the other side, and then I'll back it off just a hair. And at that point, we're totally set up. So when I have nutrient in my tank, as it comes down this line, it'll hit this spaghetti line, and it'll flow right down through my top nutrient. You won't even hear that thing watering when it's going, but it's going to water for a 3.5 to 4 minute cycle, 4.5 minute cycle, and that'll let it go all the way through the drainage in our pots, and thereby watering the very bottom pot. That's the gist of this whole system, and in a span of probably, if you're new at this, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you've set up an entire garden. Now it's time to go plant it and have fun. All right, to this point, we've set up your vertical garden. This is a 16 pot system stack, so that's about 80 plants that you can set up in a garden like this. A couple of things that are very important. I haven't talked anything about how to plant this garden yet, and I'm not going to do much there yet. We're going to probably eventually have parts and pieces of this in YouTube videos. But this guy right here is your outdoor garden growing instructions. It goes through planting, it goes through timing increments, it goes through some of the pests that you'll commonly come up against. It'll go through how you deal with the growing medias that we use. Wanted to show you a couple of them. This big block here is a block of coconut fiber. 5 years ago, this might have been considered trash, but anymore, it's a substitute for peat moss, and it is absolutely fantastic. We use it about in 25% of everything that we do with Verti-Gro. We use this as one of the growing medias that we use. What we love about it is it comes very compacted. This block right here will expand about 5 to 7 times. And when you expand this, it's very helpful if you have like a 15-gallon tub when you expand it. All we do with this is we take the plastic off and we drip water on it for about 45 minutes. And what that's going to do for us is give us a real coffee grounds type of a feel to it once it's all expanded. The other part of the plant, actually here's kind of what it looks like. This is a bag of coconut fiber and what we call vermiculite, and that's part of what we use in a little plant starter kit that we give you. This has, you know, anywhere from 20 to 25 cells that we give you in various kits that we have, and it's a great way to start your plants from seed if you want to have that experience. If you don't do that, then you can have little plug plants that you can transplant into your garden. I would highly suggest that you get used to and have some fun with learning how to do your own seeds. That's a great part of the learning program here. The other media that we use when we ship these gardens, a commonly used media called perlite. Comes in a bag. It's kind of dusty, so I'm not going to take it out right now. It's very light, volcanic, and you have enough to fill the bottom portion of your Verti-Gro pot. So get into your instructions. How we do that is we vary the amounts of the coconut fiber and the perlite. Roughly speaking, the bottom 2/3 of each of our pots when we use media is filled with perlite, the lighter substance. The water can flow right through it. The upper quarter to upper third of the pot is filled with that expanded coconut coir, and that'll give you a real neat growing level as you go through the vertical garden. I'm going to jump into some of the hydroponic nutrients that we do at Verti-Gro. This is the longest product that we've dealt with. We've been making this since the early 70s, and it's been used all around the world, been called many different things. In this setup here, it's a 2-part nutrient, and we give very, very convenient. This is 250 gallons worth of refills. When you add water to this dry nutrient, what it's going to do for you is it's going to be what you use at about 1/2 gallon per ounce inside of your tank. Again, get into your growing instructions on the specifics on that. And we also give you another 2 refills on these guys. So essentially you start out with 750 gallons worth of refills in a system like this. I want to mention here that we're not really growing in dirt. You can call it hydroponics. If you choose to move to our organic nutrient, then we're going to call it drip organics. And either way, both fantastic results. If you move to the organic side of things, your cost is about 2 to 3 times more than if you use the 2-part hydroponic, and you add a couple more levels of things that you're needing to do when you move to organic. That's about all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed this. It's going to make your life a lot easier when you move into some vertical gardening, whether you expand in your current garden or whether you do this solely with Verti-Gro. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you all watching.